A festive night fills the city streets, yet bodies lie mysteriously unconscious on the pavement. A group of sharp-suited men strolls through, one cynically noting the unusual decorations on the trees. While his friends boast about home-cooked meals, the protagonist makes a grim joke about his own family's lethal cooking. His intense purple-eyed stare hints at a life far removed from simple holiday cheer. An awkward apology is quickly brushed aside as he urges his friends to return to their families. He waves goodbye, a solitary figure watching his companions disappear into the night. Standing alone as snow begins to fall, he reflects on the simple comfort of having a home to return to. A single delicate snowflake lands on his hand and instantly melts away. Without warning, a nearby street lamp crackles with electricity and abruptly goes dark. The entire street is plunged into a sudden blackout, leaving the crowd confused in the falling snow. While the crowd scatters in terror, he stands still, observing the chaos with a cold analytical gaze. Panic escalates as people realize the very structures of the city are starting to melt away. A horrifying swarm of shadowy hands erupts from the ground, dragging screaming citizens into the abyss. He watches helplessly as one of his own friends is ensnared and pulled into the air by the spectral limbs. His survival instincts finally kick in, and he makes a desperate dash to escape the carnage. A shadowy predator immediately gives chase, lunging to claim him as its next victim. Looking back, he sees the true scale of the threat, a colossal monster made of grasping hands looming over the street. His escape is cut short as the phantom hands finally catch him, pulling him into the suffocating darkness. The nightmare expands as a vast shadowy presence begins to descend over the entire city. In an instant, the monstrous entity swallows the cityscape, twisting it into a distorted, hellish landscape. The shadowy horror expands, its monstrous form eclipsing the entire planet from the void of space. His consciousness plummets through the cosmos, drawn into a swirling inescapable abyss. He snaps back to reality with a silent scream, his mind fractured by the cosmic nightmare. Gasping for air, he finds himself standing alone in a desolate, unfamiliar landscape. He discovers his body is paralyzed and his voice is gone, trapping him in this strange new world. The memory of being consumed by darkness floods his mind. He knows he shouldn't be alive. He looks around, utterly bewildered to find himself in a bustling old-fashioned town square. A sudden chilling realization dawns on him as he notices something is terribly wrong. His reflection in a puddle reveals a pale, gaunt face that is disturbingly not his own. A blaring siren suddenly echoes through the town, warning of an approaching black night in 3 minutes. As the townsfolk scatter in panic, he understands he's in a new world, and the impending doom is arriving early. With the countdown at 1 minute, the terrifying thought of being a sitting duck hits him hard. A fleeing citizen shoves past, callously telling him to move or become a casualty. He desperately tries to stand but collapses, his body still refusing to obey as the final 10 seconds begin. With 9 seconds left, a creeping blackness begins to consume the town from the ground up. The shadowy tide surges through the streets, rushing towards his helpless form on the pavement. He stares down the approaching abyss, recognizing it as the very same horror that ended his first life. As the darkness makes contact with his leg, he feels an unexpected sensation instead of oblivion. In the final second, control floods back into his limbs, and he jolts into a ready position. The Black Night officially begins, twisting the world into a shadowy realm and catching unsuspecting creatures in its grasp. He looks up in confusion as birds suddenly drop dead from the sky all around him. He watches in morbid fascination as the fallen animals begin to transform, corrupted by a dark energy. A horde of monstrous beasts with glowing red eyes rises from the transformed corpses, and he realizes this is what the townsfolk feared. One of the fanged horrors lets out a vicious snarl, its maw dripping with saliva. The creature lunges at him with blinding speed, catching him completely by surprise. Before the beast can land its attack, a massive shadowy hand materializes to intercept it. The spectral hand effortlessly seizes the monster, clamping its jaws shut with immense power. He stares in utter shock, unable to process the impossible scene unfolding before him. His brief moment of relief is shattered by the appearance of a colossal skeletal figure, the true master of the shadowy hand. The view expands to reveal an even greater horror, a mountain of watching eyes making him wonder if he's been reborn in hell itself. With his survival instinct screaming, he bolts away from the colossal nightmare. The smaller beast lets out an agonized shriek as the skeletal hand effortlessly crushes it. As the defeated creature collapses behind him, a desperate plan for survival sparks in his mind. He reaches a large magically sealed door and frantically pounds on it, hoping for sanctuary. The magical seal sears his hand, and just as he recoils, another beast lunges for his head. He's caught by the creature, gritting his teeth as he struggles against its crushing grip. Breaking free, he notices the creature is surprisingly slow, giving him a fighting chance. His relief is cut short as a writhing mass of tentacles covered in glowing red eyes bursts from the shadows. The tentacled horror completely ignores him, instead slamming down on the skeletal beast that was just moments from catching him. He stumbles backward, watching in disbelief as the creature devours its own kind, revealing a new level of horror. Fleeing the carnage, he desperately tries to understand the nightmare he's been thrown into. He sprints through the desolate town, questioning what hellish place he's landed in. The tentacled horror descends upon him, but he refuses to let his second chance at life end so soon. In a flash of light, a mysterious force slices cleanly through the monstrous tentacles. A new figure appears, casually remarking on the protagonist's escape as if he were a runaway pet. He stares in disbelief, questioning if the being who effortlessly dispatched the monster could possibly be human. Realizing he's just traded one threat for another, he makes a desperate attempt to run. His escape is cut short as a powerful hand grabs him by the hair, halting his flight. He's lifted into the air by a ghastly skeletal figure who declares him caught. His consciousness fades and returns, finding himself in a strange ominous room with a splitting headache. He slowly regains his senses, his mind hazy as he tries to understand where he is. His eyes snap open to find himself shackled and suspended in a dark ominous dungeon. An imposing old man stands below, remarking that he's been waiting 3 days for his grandson to return. The captor reveals a grotesque potion, specially brewed to exorcise unwanted entities. With a defiant glare, he desperately insists that he is a living person, not some foul spirit. The old man's glowing red eyes narrow, utterly unconvinced by the plea he believes to be a lie. Leaping into the air, the captor accuses him of occupying a body that is not his own. He's grabbed by the throat as the old man demands the return of his grandson's body, a stunning revelation. Without another word, the old man forces the vile green liquid down his throat. An excruciating burning sensation tears through him as the mysterious potion begins to take effect. His purple eyes glow with an otherworldly light as the potion courses through his veins. He thrashes in pure agony, the green concoction failing to exorcise him and instead awakening something else. The old man slams him against the wall, convinced he's dealing with a stubborn inhuman beast. Desperately trying to explain, he finds his voice stolen, his eye now flaring with a menacing red glow. Enraged, the captor roars, demanding the entity vacate his grandson's body immediately. A brutal strike sends him reeling, the impact meant to force the unwanted spirit out. Instead of being expelled, a torrent of dark chaotic energy bursts from his very being. The shadows coalesce into a monstrous form, roaring with a malevolent red-eyed fury. The old man seizes a piece of the shadowy substance, questioning if this is a fragment of the entity's true self. Surrounded by a cosmic aura, he understands the old man wasn't talking to him but to the darkness inside. The old man clutches the shadowy essence, addressing the dark power directly, not the boy. Vowing to destroy it, the captor declares that even if he can't erase it all at once, its end is certain. With a surge of power, he crushes the fragment of darkness, promising to grind it to dust. The protagonist watches weakly, his mind struggling to grasp the new reality of his situation. The old man lunges forward, furiously demanding to know what the entity has done to his grandson. Suddenly, a calm disembodied voice notes that it now understands why he was unresponsive. His consciousness is pulled into a vast starry expanse, leaving the physical world behind. He grips his head, overwhelmed by a sudden splitting headache in this new mental realm. A brilliant cosmic light explains that the pain is a temporary side effect of being forcibly summoned. Looking around the void in confusion, he learns that he's been brought into his own moonscape. The spectral figure reveals this mental space is an exclusive skill for transmigrators like him. With no time for a full debrief, the entity urges him to calm down and listen closely. The first rule of survival is revealed. Stay inside during the black night or risk being captured by its monstrous inhabitants. He connects the dots, realizing the red-eyed beasts are the very monsters the figure is warning him about. The second warning is dire. Transmigration is viewed as demonic possession, so he must avoid any detection tests or face a swift execution. The third warning is the most urgent. His new body is technically dead, and he must ignite his source fire to restore it. As the mental world shatters around him, he's given a terrifying deadline. Ignite the fire in 3 days or the body will decay. He plummets through the collapsing moonscape, horrified by the 3-day countdown to his body's complete decay. His consciousness snaps back to reality, and he jolts awake in a bed completely disoriented and panicked. He scans the unfamiliar bedroom, confused as his last memory was of being trapped in the old man's dungeon. He cautiously tests his body, planting his foot firmly on the floor. He discovers his voice has returned and his complexion has improved, a stark contrast to his earlier deathly state. He wonders if the old man's violent exorcism somehow stabilized his new body. A young girl's voice is heard from outside, telling visitors her brother is too ill to be disturbed. The door is violently kicked open, sending the girl sprawling as men barge in, accusing him of being guilty. A group of officials led by the town chief identifies him as the culprit they've been searching for. An accuser points him out, claiming he was the one standing outside when the Black Night began. The men rush forward to seize him, ordered to make him a public example. The young girl bravely shields him, revealing she is his sister and he has been bedridden for 3 days. An official dismisses her claim, questioning the blood on him as a sudden headache overwhelms the protagonist. The official scoffs at her pleas, pulling out a syringe and questioning why an innocent person would fear a simple test. He's hit with the memory of the entity's warning. Being tested for possession means a swift and merciless execution. A wave of panic washes over him as he realizes he absolutely cannot let that needle touch him. His sister struggles against her captor, begging the men to leave her obviously sick brother alone. The lead official ignores her, grabbing the protagonist and declaring the test will reveal the truth. He menacingly explains the syringe contains a special potion designed to cause excruciating pain to any monster. As the man lunges to inject him, a strange purple energy erupts from the protagonist's hand to block the assault. Before the needle can make contact, a powerful voice roars through the room, commanding everyone to halt. The officials freeze, turning in confusion toward the imposing figure now standing in the doorway. The old man steps forward with glowing red eyes, coldly asking the men if they have a death wish for touching his grandson. He stares in disbelief, wondering why the very man who tortured him has suddenly appeared. The town chief tries to placate the old man, explaining they were just about to perform a routine test. The grandfather cuts him off, demanding to know if this entire spectacle was the chief's idea. The chief justifies his actions, claiming it's for the town's peace of mind amidst recent unsettling events. His explanation only fuels the old man's silent burning rage. He slams his bag down, positioning himself as a shield and leaving the protagonist stunned by the protective gesture. The old man questions the chief's motives, asking if he doubts his ability to protect his own family. Unwilling to back down, the chief gives a subtle nonverbal signal to his subordinate. The other officials pipe up, insisting they saw him outside and that his refusal to be tested is proof of guilt. The grandfather's expression darkens as he repeats their demand for evidence with chilling intensity. The old man agrees to provide proof, leaving the protagonist to wonder what his terrifying grandfather has planned. He explains that their enemies fear something called source fire, a term the protagonist still doesn't understand. The grandfather leans in with a menacing grin, offering a twisted form of reassurance that only heightens the tension. His sister, however, is completely at ease, trusting her grandfather to handle the situation. To everyone's shock, the old man produces a large glowing green crystal he calls a source stone. He warns his grandson to brace himself for a bit of pain, a warning that does little to calm the protagonist's nerves. Without another word, he crushes the crystal, showering the protagonist in a torrent of raw green energy. The officials watch in disbelief, remarking on the stone's immense size and value. The protagonist is completely overwhelmed by the energy, realizing this is far more than just a little pain. He clenches his jaw, enduring an agonizing sensation that feels like it's tearing him apart from the inside. The grandfather declares that igniting the source fire is the ultimate proof of his grandson's identity. As the raw power surges through him, he grits his teeth and feels something else stirring deep within. A brilliant white flame ignites in his chest, and he finally understands what the source fire is. But his relief is short-lived as a dark shadowy energy begins to clash with the pure white flame. He's shocked to find the darkness is acting like fuel, making the source fire burn even more fiercely. His sister watches in horror as a second darker energy begins to pour into his body alongside the green. He realizes with terror that the two conflicting powers are threatening to overwhelm him completely. With a desperate roar, he unleashes a powerful shockwave of energy, forcing everyone back. The explosive release of power leaves him drained, and he collapses to his knees. The grandfather triumphantly declares this proves his innocence, as only a true human can wield the source fire. The accuser stares in disbelief, unable to comprehend how the boy could wield source fire after what he witnessed. The grandfather turns to the officials, smugly asking if the proof of his grandson's humanity is now sufficient. The town chief forces a smile, attempting to smooth things over by saying everyone is relieved the boy is fine. As the officials retreat, the chief gives a final menacing look, silently vowing that this encounter is not over. His sister rushes to his side asking if he's okay while he realizes the source fire has stabilized his new body. The moment of relief is shattered as a black shadowy substance suddenly strikes the grandfather in the face. He collapses to the floor, the dark corruption clinging to him as his granddaughter kneels beside him in panic. She watches in horror as a dark aura envelops him, realizing his source fire has been completely extinguished. She desperately pleads with her grandfather to wake up while the protagonist looks on, stunned by the sudden turn of events. The old man weakly tells his granddaughter he's dying, making a final unusual request with his last breaths. The dying grandfather makes a bizarre final request for a drink, leaving his grandchildren utterly bewildered. His sister's grief turns to fury as she accuses the old man of faking his demise just to scam a drink. Her expression darkens menacingly as she reminds him of his strict monthly drinking allowance, her fist glowing with fiery resolve. The old man miraculously recovers, grumbling about how his granddaughter's strict rules are the real threat to his life. His tone shifts as he advises the protagonist to rest, acknowledging his unstable power and confused state of mind. He offers a fierce grin, assuring the boy that no matter what, he and his sister are family who will always protect him. The protagonist silently processes this declaration, the concept of family feeling foreign and new. He leans against the wall, wrestling with the unfamiliar word family and wondering how they'd react to his true identity. Elsewhere, the town chief stares out at the village, still convinced he witnessed a dark entity possess the boy. He dismisses his subordinate's confusion, who reminds him of their sinister plot to frame the family and steal their land. The chief questions why the old man refuses to sell his land, sensing a hidden motive behind the family's stubbornness. He recalls the massive glowing source stone the grandfather produced, a clue to the family's secret. The chief deduces that a simple night patrolman could only have found such a treasure by digging it up on his land. He orders his subordinate to search the forest, planning to leverage whatever they find for his own gain. A sinister smile spreads across his face as he realizes this could be their ticket to immense wealth. The next day, sunlight bathes the quiet town, bringing a temporary peace. Meanwhile, the protagonist discovers a diary, realizing the body's original owner was a training fanatic. He flips through the journal, finding strange symbols and fighting techniques, but certain notes stand out. The first rule he learns is that monsters fear sunlight and source fire, making daytime safe for humans. The second rule is a grim warning. When night falls, humans must shelter in homes protected by the source fire. He realizes the old man wasn't trying to kill him, but to exorcise a dark entity from his body. The diary reveals a third rule. A dark energy called Shachi can also be used to become stronger, an unsettling discovery. His thoughts are interrupted by his sister's voice from the doorway asking if he's resting. She enters, telling him their grandfather said a walk would help his recovery. He considers her offer, realizing he has yet to see what this new world looks like in the daylight. Agreeing to the walk, he's met with his sister's cheerful excitement. They step out into a bustling, peaceful town square, a stark contrast to the horrors of the night. Walking through the market, he sees vendors selling everything from fuel to jewelry, all made from source stones. He observes the townsfolk, understanding that the energy from these stones is integral to their daily lives. Looking at the houses, he notices green charms and deduces these source stones are what protect the homes at night. A friendly shopkeeper offers the sister a new batch of wine for her grandfather. She smiles sweetly, recalling how she secretly added sourstone powder to the last batch as a special treat. Her expression darkens as she firmly instructs the shopkeeper to report any attempts by her grandfather to buy more. Leaving the shop, the protagonist spots a group of armed men heading out of town, seemingly on a mission. He recognizes one of them as the town chief's subordinate, confirming his suspicions. His sister wonders why the town's usual idlers are suddenly carrying so much equipment. Deciding they are up to no good, she impulsively grabs her brother and sprints off to follow them. He's momentarily surprised by his new sister's energetic and decisive nature. He quickly gives chase, but as they run, a sinister cloaked figure watches them from the shadows. The skeletal being wonders if the two siblings have somehow sensed its presence. The mysterious figure takes a silent step forward, deciding to pursue the siblings. He resolves that under no circumstances can they be allowed to interfere with his sinister plans. Meanwhile, the protagonist and his sister race deeper into the eerie mist-filled forest. The chief's men grow nervous, with one claiming the very roots of the trees are moving beneath them. Their leader snaps, silencing their fears with a harsh threat to keep them moving. He smirks confidently, convinced that any monsters lurking nearby are powerless in the daylight. Pulling out a strange compass, he reveals it's pointing to a massive source stone mine. He promises his men a lifetime of wealth, ordering them to be ready to grab anything valuable. Their greedy celebration is cut short as they realize they are no longer alone. The sister boldly confronts the men, declaring the forest as their family's property and demanding they leave. The subordinate is startled by her sudden appearance, then scoffs in recognition. He taunts her, claiming they were coming for her family anyway, unaware of the shadowy horror creeping up behind them. The cloaked skeletal figure steps out from the trees, its red eyes glowing with malevolent intent. It wonders how they knew its secret, but decides to eliminate all witnesses to ensure their silence. The monster lunges forward with terrifying speed, its clawed foot digging into the earth. It strikes one of the men with a single devastating blow, sending him reeling in agony. The remaining men stare in horror, realizing they've stumbled into a deadly trap and must run. Everyone flees in terror as the shadowy creature gives chase, turning the forest into a hunting ground. One of the men trips and falls, pleading for his leader not to leave him behind. The monster looms over its helpless victim, preparing to deliver the final crushing strike. The skeletal horror watches the last man flee, a sinister grin spreading across its face. It stands over the fallen, mockingly noting how fast the survivors are running for their lives. The The monster's grotesque face fills the frame as it scoffs at the very idea of anyone escaping its grasp. As they sprint through the trees, the protagonist questions what kind of creature they just encountered. He turns back in confusion, remembering that these dark monsters are supposed to be nocturnal. The subordinate reveals that as long as they avoid sunlight, the creatures can hunt during the day. His sister fiercely defends him, accusing the subordinate of luring the monster to them. Their desperate escape leads them to a clearing, where they stop dead in their tracks. They find themselves trapped at the edge of a chasm, the bridge that once spanned it now completely destroyed. The subordinate looks back in terror, realizing the monster deliberately cut off their only escape route. The subordinate points in terror as the shadowy monster emerges from the mist. The creature descends controlled like a puppet by a massive spectral hand. The protagonist finds himself suddenly paralyzed, unable to move as his sister cries out a warning. His sister shoves him aside, taking the full force of the monster's energy blast herself. He catches her as the impact sends them both stumbling toward the cliff's edge. The blast sends them both plummeting into the dark, seemingly bottomless chasm. The subordinate continues his desperate escape, leaving the siblings to their fate. His flight is cut short as the shadowy monster materializes directly in his path. The man collapses in terror, attempting to play dead as the creature's shadow falls over him. Overwhelmed by fear, he loses all composure, weakly pleading for help that will not come. The subordinate is swiftly knocked unconscious by a single shadowy blow. The skeletal figure carries him away, deeming the chief's son a useful pawn for its plans. It peers into the chasm, certain the siblings will perish from the corrupting energy below even if they survive the fall. The two plummet through the abyss completely enveloped by the swirling dark energy. They land hard at the bottom of the chasm, lying unconscious amidst the shadowy tendrils. The protagonist's eye snaps open, a single tear tracing a path down his cheek. He jolts awake in a panic, his first thought being the safety of his new sister. He finds her unconscious but breathing, her skin marred by strange dark cracks. He holds her close, realizing the chasm's corrupting energy is slowly consuming her. As he embraces her, the dark power within him stirs, a shadowy entity manifesting from his own being. With a furious roar, he unleashes his own dark power, forcing the chasm's corrupting energy away from them. He takes a heavy step forward, carrying his sister through the desolate chasm. Planting his foot firmly, he resolves to find a way out of this dark abyss. He knows they can't survive down here forever and that their only hope is to find sunlight. Spotting a sliver of light high above, a desperate plan to escape begins to form. He makes a mad dash for the light, the shadowy entity from his own body trailing behind him. As they reach the light, the dark energy clinging to them sizzles and evaporates in the sun's rays. Safely in the sunlight, he gently lays her down, desperately trying to wake her from her unconscious state. He notices with dread that the dark crack-like corruption hasn't faded from her skin. A sharp agonizing pain shoots through him as he realizes the corruption is still consuming her from within. He's shocked to find the dark corruption still clinging to him, wondering why sunlight hasn't dispelled it. He decides to absorb the lingering dark energy, fearing it will make him look like a monster. Closing his eyes, he begins to draw the corrupting power into his own body. His consciousness is abruptly pulled into a strange empty void, leaving him disoriented. A familiar voice calls his new name, and he realizes he's been pulled back into his own mindscape. He finally meets the spectral entity who immediately questions the dark energy clinging to him. He explains that when the corruption invaded, his first instinct was to try and absorb it. The entity erupts in fury, calling his actions a death wish, but he casually dismisses her concern. She warns that absorbing such power is a one-way trip to oblivion, and he was lucky to accidentally summon her. He flashes back to his recent struggles, realizing the body's original owner may have been training with this same dark energy. The entity reveals that because his consciousness is new to this world, it's not yet fully anchored. She warns that if his new body decays, his consciousness will be completely obliterated along with it. She explains that only source fire sustains life, while the dark energy Shang-Chi will cause his body to rot away. He asks if there's another way to fight the corruption besides sunlight, and she confirms there is a method. The entity explains his body is like a battery for source fire, which he can circulate to purge the dark energy. When he asks what to do next, she gives him a simple chilling directive: get stronger and survive. She casually informs him that this was a one-time rescue and she won't be showing up to save him again. Cutting the lesson short, she claims she has her own urgent business to handle. With a final desperate warning not to absorb the dark energy, she vanishes as he tries to call her back. His consciousness snaps back to reality, leaving him startled and alone at the bottom of the chasm. He reflects on the dark energy, realizing he almost lost control of his own murderous intent. His thoughts are cut short as he sees his sister lying motionless on the ground. He rushes to her side, seeing the severe injuries she sustained from the monster's blast. Looking around the chasm, he knows the corrupting energy will eventually consume them both if they stay. He's trapped in a deadly dilemma. His sister won't survive the journey out, but staying means certain death. She weakly grabs his arm, her voice barely a whisper as she tries to reassure him. With her fading strength, she reminds him that they are and always will be family. The word family hits him hard as he recalls how she's cared for him since he arrived. He remembers her fiercely protecting him from the town chief's men. The memory of her sacrificing herself to save him from the monster's attack flashes through his mind. He holds her, finally understanding the true meaning of the word family. With newfound resolve, he declares that this time it's his turn to be the protector. His escape is blocked by the towering inescapable walls of the chasm. A shadowy entity with glowing purple eyes materializes, mocking his futile hope. He grits his teeth, promising to carry his sister to safety no matter the cost. The spectral figure looms over them, questioning how he could possibly escape. It taunts him, calling him a useless weakling who can't even save himself. He struggles with the entity's words, questioning if this is a hallucination or his own inner demon. The entity tempts him to abandon his sister and save himself before his power runs out. His source fire finally gives out, but he refuses to let go, choosing to face oblivion with her. The spectral entity mocks his resolve, reminding him of his long history of abandonment. The voice forces him to confront the painful memories of the body he now inhabits. A flashback reveals a past where he sacrificed his dignity to escape a bully's wrath. Another memory shows him abandoning his ideals, resorting to theft just to get by. The most painful memory surfaces, watching a fire consume his home, choosing to save himself over his family. He grits his teeth, trying to deny the weight of these inherited failures. The memory clarifies he wasn't callous but a terrified child held back from a blazing inferno. His inner demon scoffs at his powerlessness, reminding him his source fire is fading and he can save no one. Gently laying his sister down, he finds a new resolve, determined that this time will be different. With glowing red eyes, he decides to embrace the darkness, vowing to absorb the corrupting energy himself. He declares he'll become a monster if it means protecting the innocent girl beside him. He willingly invites the chasm's corrupting energy to flood into his very being. Back in town, the grandfather senses the massive surge of power from a rooftop. He instantly recognizes the energy fluctuation is coming from their ancestral forest. The old man stares toward the forest, questioning the source of the chaotic disturbance. A sinister smile spreads across the protagonist's face as he revels in his new power. The immense dark energy attracts a horde of monsters and he asks if they were drawn to him. He launches himself into the fray, a blur of dark energy cutting through the monstrous beasts. Surrounded by a malevolent aura, he scoffs at the relentless creatures. He calmly faces down the remaining monsters, questioning their foolish attempt to devour him. With a furious glare, he scoffs at the monsters, questioning if they are even worthy of facing him. He unleashes a flurry of dark energy, effortlessly slicing through the horde of beasts. His victory is cut short as a colossal purple-flamed golem emerges from the shadows. The giant monster slams its massive fist down, intending to crush him in a single blow. With a single hand, he effortlessly stops the attack, mocking the creature's reliance on brute strength. A sinister smirk crosses his face as he gathers a swirling vortex of dark energy in his other hand. He unleashes the power, which immediately begins to consume the monster's arm. Casually extending his hand, he decides it's time to put on a real show of destructive force. A massive ring of dark energy forms around him, dwarfing even the colossal golem before him. He unleashes a devastating pillar of red energy from the ground, completely engulfing the giant beast. The pillar of red energy completely consumes the colossal golem in a devastating blast. Lying on the ground, his sister slowly regains consciousness, her voice a faint whisper. He stands over the smoldering remains, the battle won but the dark power still swirling around him. A surge of adrenaline hits his sister as she musters the strength to get to her feet. She rushes to embrace him, overcome with relief that he survived the ordeal. The dark energy's backlash hits him hard, a splitting headache making him grit his teeth in pain. A malevolent presence takes over, his eyes glowing red as a sinister urge to destroy fills his mind. His sister backs away in fear, questioning the terrifying change in his eyes and realizing he absorbed the chasm's power. Completely consumed by rage, he lunges toward her, no longer recognizing his own sister. She bravely throws her arms around him, desperately trying to break through the darkness and bring him back to his senses. She holds him tight, pleading for him to fight the darkness, sensing his true power is still within. Her voice cuts through the rage, and for a moment, his true self fights back against the overwhelming darkness. The shadowy entity in his mind urges him to destroy her, but he desperately fights back against the malevolent voice. With a surge of effort, he pushes her away, warning her to flee while he can still suppress the monstrous urge to attack. He pleads for her to save herself, but she remains steadfast, refusing to abandon her brother to the darkness. The internal battle reaches its peak as he feels his self-control slipping away completely. Ignoring the danger, she leaps toward him again, desperately trying to pull him back from the brink of being lost forever. Her desperate cry that she can't lose him again finally breaks through, stunning him out of his corrupted state. Memories of his new family flood his mind, and he realizes that for the first time, he has people he truly wants to protect. With newfound clarity, he seizes control of the dark energy, unleashing it with a roar of defiance to protect his sister. He roars with newfound conviction, declaring himself the sole master of his body. The dark power recedes, leaving him panting as his sister cautiously approaches. He looks at her, wondering how her voice alone was enough to pull him back from the brink. With his mind clear, he insists on carrying his sister to get them both out of the dangerous chasm. He lifts her onto his back, and with a shared look of resolve, they begin their escape. His eyes widen in alarm as he senses an abrupt and ominous shift in the environment. They look up to see the sky darkening unnaturally, realizing the dreaded black night is about to begin. Knowing the extreme danger, he breaks into a desperate sprint, racing against the encroaching darkness. His sister pleads with him to put her down, convinced she is slowing their only chance of escape. He furiously rejects her suggestion, vowing that he will never abandon his family again. He makes a solemn promise to protect her no matter what happens as they race through the chasm. Suddenly, a colossal red eye fills the sky, its gaze pinning him to the spot with immense pressure. He grits his teeth, feeling his entire body strain to the breaking point under the entity's overwhelming power. His sister recalls their grandfather's stories of a powerful evil sealed in their ancestral land. The protagonist is terrified, realizing that just being watched by this entity feels like staring into the abyss. Trapped and powerless, he wonders if their only option is to be consumed by the encroaching darkness. Finding shelter in a small cave, he promises to face whatever comes next by her side. As she embraces him, a thunderous voice echoes through the chasm, challenging the monster in their midst. They look up to see their grandfather descending from the cliff, wreathed in a brilliant blue flame. He lands with a powerful thud, his very presence pushing back the darkness as he prepares to confront the threat. The protagonist feels the crushing pressure vanish, finally witnessing the true extent of his grandfather's power. The colossal eye scoffs, belittling the old man and claiming he's nothing compared to the power of his ancestors. The grandfather acknowledges his outmatched but fiercely declares he'll take the entity down with him if necessary. A tense standoff ensues as the ancient entity silently considers the old man's defiant threat. The colossal eye narrows and retreats into the darkness, seemingly backing down from the confrontation. With the immediate threat gone, the old man turns to his grandchildren to check on their condition. He scolds them for their recklessness, pointing out their injuries and questioning why they entered such a dangerous place. Overcome with guilt, the protagonist apologizes, blaming himself for failing to protect his sister. His grandfather places a reassuring hand on his head, comforting him in his moment of guilt. The old man praises his efforts, telling him that as a brother, he has already done more than enough. With the danger past, the old man leads his grandchildren home, a complete family once more. Unseen from the chasm below, shadowy figures express their surprise that the siblings actually survived the ordeal. A sinister puppet master sees this as a perfect opportunity, believing the old man's presence makes him a vulnerable target. As they walk, the grandfather explains that by wielding source fire, the protagonist is now considered an awakened beginner. He elaborates that awakened can become either warriors or technicians, and the boy must now discover his own attribute. His sister excitedly asks if this means he'll become as powerful as their grandfather someday. The old man scoffs with a grin, humbly claiming he's just a low-level warrior and nothing special. She insists he's still amazing in her eyes as they walk together, a united front heading home. His moment of peace is shattered as he looks back with a sudden startled expression. Perched atop a distant building, a massive monstrous creature looms over the town, its presence signaling new danger. The grandfather dismisses the hulking monster, calling it a low-level threat they can ignore. He explains that these dark creatures, the Shah, are ranked by their power. The hierarchy progresses from the weakest black rank to green and finally to the terrifying red rank. He reveals the giant creature is just a low-level black rank, using an illusion to appear more intimidating. The protagonist cheekily wonders how a color-blind awakened would be able to tell the monsters apart. His grandfather playfully threatens to cure any such ailment with a blast of source fire, much to the boy's alarm. His sister then asks a serious question, wanting to know the rank of the entity they encountered in the chasm. The grandfather's expression turns grim as he considers the powerful entity from their ancestral land. He explains that the colossal eye defies their ranking system as if it's a being from another world entirely. He suddenly stops, sensing a disturbance and realizing the dark energy is being deliberately manipulated by an unseen enemy. A powerful slash of energy cuts through the air as the grandfather unleashes his attack. He orders his grandson to protect the sister while he charges forward to face the new threat. The old man confronts the cloaked skeletal figure, who mockingly reveals itself from the shadows. The creature unleashes a devastating blast of dark energy, striking the ground with immense force. The grandfather counters with a powerful technique, declaring he's finally found the enemy he's been hunting. He skillfully dodges a shadowy strike, narrowly avoiding the monster's swift assault. The monster brings its full weight down, but the old man expertly parries the crushing blow with his sword. Leaping into the air, he ensnares the creature in glowing blue chains, preparing a decisive strike. His sister watches the fight with growing concern, unable to shake her worry for her grandfather. As she shouts a warning, the old man realizes two more shadowy beasts have appeared surrounding the children. The grandfather intercepts the monster's attack, blocking the crushing blow just in time. The skeletal creature strains against the glowing blue chains, struggling to break free. He finds himself surrounded by three powerful monsters, realizing the true scale of the ambush. The old man unleashes a powerful wave of blue energy, forcing his opponents back. The two new monsters reveal themselves, one a hulking beast and the other a shadowy figure. He casts another binding spell, warning the children that the chains won't hold the creatures for long. The family makes a desperate run for it as the monsters begin to break free from their magical restraints. From the shadows, the puppet master smirks, confident the old man is doomed by his need to protect his family. The monsters break their bonds, their glowing eyes fixed on their prey with deadly intent. The grandfather shoves the children toward a building, ordering them to find a signal flare while he holds the line. The grandfather stands as a shield in the doorway, insisting their presence will only distract him. Grabbing his sister's hand, the protagonist pulls her to safety as she shouts a final worried warning. With the children gone, the old man turns to face the empty street, ready for the inevitable assault. A shadowy monster with glowing red eyes lunges from the darkness, aiming to strike him down. He counters with a burst of energy, deflecting one attack while another shadowy claw rises from the ground. The old man leaps into the fray, expertly battling two monsters at once amidst crackling dark energy. A powerful blast of purple energy sends him flying backward, slamming him against a nearby structure. He lands skillfully on his feet, bracing himself as he recovers from the powerful blow. Parrying a shadowy claw with his sword, he realizes these creatures are fighting with unnatural coordination. He deduces the monsters are being controlled by a skilled puppet master, making the fight far more dangerous. One of the monsters unleashes a powerful blast of purple energy, signaling the start of a coordinated attack. The old man stands his ground as another shadowy creature lunges forward, its form a blur of dark energy. His expression hardens, realizing he must buy enough time for reinforcements to arrive. Inside, the siblings are startled as a hulking beast begins to pound on the window's protective barrier. The protective ward shatters under the monster's relentless assault, allowing it to break through. The old man's eyes dart to the side, realizing the monsters have breached the building his grandchildren are in. He furiously kicks one of the beasts aside, desperate to get back to his grandchildren. The protagonist watches the struggle, realizing his grandfather is being overwhelmed and won't last much longer. Deciding he has no choice, he prepares to unleash the dangerous dark power he absorbed in the chasm. His sister grabs his arm in alarm, sensing the dangerous shift in his energy and trying to stop him. His sister desperately warns him that using the dark power will make him lose his mind, but is torn, knowing their grandfather is in danger. He clenches his fist in frustration, furious at his own powerlessness in this critical moment. With tears streaming down her face, she begs him not to give in and become the monster he fought so hard to control. Their argument is cut short by a brilliant flash of light from the battle raging just outside the window. Through the window, they see their grandfather expertly parrying a blow, shouting for them to stay put. The protagonist grits his teeth, realizing that if he doesn't act soon, his grandfather will be overwhelmed. A shadowy beast leaps from above, unleashing a devastating blast of dark energy straight at the old man. In a flash, the protagonist leaps in front of his grandfather, shielding him from the attack with his own body. The two opposing energies collide, creating a violent explosion that engulfs the area. The grandfather can only watch in horror, shouting his grandson's name as the blast consumes him. His sister screams in horror, tears streaming down her face as she watches him get hit. The skeletal monster scoffs, amused by the boy's reckless attempt to play hero. As the smoke clears, the protagonist stands firm, his green source fire glowing as he blocks the attack. He stares at his hands in shock, realizing he somehow managed to nullify the monster's blast. His eyes flash with a newfound resolve, a single tear of relief marking his survival. The monsters watch as a massive amount of dark energy begins to swirl and gather around the boy. His grandfather recognizes the phenomenon as a summoning skill, stunned that the boy has awakened as a technician. The shadowy beasts are equally baffled, questioning how this weakling awakened such a rare and powerful ability. As a dark portal opens above, the monsters realize they must stop the summoning before it's complete. A beast lunges forward to strike, but the protagonist catches its hand with an unnervingly calm expression. A brilliant red beam of energy erupts from the portal, striking the ground with immense force. From the impact, a colossal shadowy wolf-like beast materializes, its presence scattering the other monsters. The puppet master and his skeletal minions stare in disbelief, questioning what terrifying entity the boy has just unleashed. Alright, that's the end of the story. Thanks for watching, see you in the next one.